Because Ezra, I was thinking about this, Ezra lived a generation after the first wave went to Jerusalem, which meant his dad, who also would be a high priest, decided not to go back. And I thought, why? Here he's a high priest. They're going to go back, rebuild the altar, rebuild the temple, reestablish the worship of God in Jerusalem, but he decided not to go back. And it's just a question you can ask too, because I didn't come up with an answer. Scripture doesn't tell us. We could, guess with all kinds of ways. But here comes Ezra, and he's determined to go. But here's some things that we haven't touched yet about what it was like with King Art. I told you we were going to do this. If you go back to Ezra chapter 4, we skipped this because Ezra, in his accounting of the history of Israel, kind of jumped ahead to his own time and then went backwards in time. So we skipped that, and I said we'd go back, so here we are. Chapter 4, verse 7. It says, "In the days of Art, also all these other guys and the rest of their companions wrote to Art, king of Persia, and the letter was written in Aramaic script and translated into the Aramaic language. And the commander and the scribe wrote a letter against Jerusalem to King Art in this fashion. From Rehum the commander and Shimshai the scribe and the rest of their companions, representatives of the Danaites," and you tell me what it says there, "and all these other people, and the rest of the nations whom the great and noble Osnapper," now how about that for a name? Osnapper. "Took captive and settled in the cities of Samaria and the remainder beyond the river and so forth. To King Art from your servants, the men of the region beyond the river and so forth." Okay, finally. "Let it be known to the king that the Jews who came up from you have come to us at Jerusalem and are building the rebellious and evil city and are finishing its walls and repairing the foundations. Let it now be known to the king that if this city is built and the walls completed, they will not pay tax, tribute, or custom, and the king's treasury will be diminished. And now because we received support from the palace, it was not proper for us to see the king's dishonor. Therefore we've sent and informed the king that search may be made in the book of the records of your fathers, and you'll find in the book of the records and know that this city is a rebellious city, harmful to kings and provinces, and that they have incited sedition within the city in former times, for which cause this city was destroyed. And we inform the king that if this city is rebuilt and its walls are completed, the result will be that you will have no dominion beyond the river." And the king sent an answer, and he said to everybody there, peace and so forth. I love that. Peace and whatever else. "The letter which you sent to us has been clearly read before me, and I gave the command, and a search has been made, and it was found that this city in former times has revolted against the kings, and rebellion and sedition have been fostered in it. And there have also been mighty kings over Jerusalem who have ruled over all the region beyond the river, and tax, tribute, and custom were paid to them. Now give the command to make these men cease, that this city may not be built until the command is given by me. Take heed now that you do not fail to do this. Why should damage increase to the hurt of the kings?" And when the copy of King Art's letter was read, their companions went up in haste to Jerusalem against the Jews, and by force of arms made them cease. Huh? When King Art was first king, this is after the temple had already been built. The temple is built, and now the people are starting to build the wall and build the city up. And the people all around from Samaria and stuff are going, we remember these people. We were at war with them off and on. We don't want this rebuilt. We're complaining to King Art. This had to have been early in his reign, before the 7th year, because it was in the 7th year that Ezra went with the blessing of King Art. And so what we find here is King Art was against and had history on his side in his mind to say, I don't want Jerusalem rebuilt. I don't want these people getting strong again. You go and by force of arms make them stop building that city. And then sometime within the 7-year period, he changed his mind. He changed his mind. Why? He changed his mind so much that in the 20th year he sent Nehemiah. And he changed his mind so much that Well, we've already talked about the when. I didn't tell you we were talking about when, but it's during the reign of King Art, king of Persia. What happened? Well, the what happened is that Ezra made a request of the king. And we don't have that request written here. But what we have written here is the letter that Ezra got from the king of Persia. And from that, we can glean what Ezra asked for. And listen to this. Back to chapter 7, verse 11. It says, this is a copy of a letter that King Art gave to Ezra the priest, the scribe, expert in the words of the commandments of the Lord. And I love that. He says he was expert. He was an expert in this. In the words and commandments of the Lord. He's the one who wrote this. Did you find that interesting? I don't know. Artaxerxes, king of kings, to Ezra the priest, a scribe of the law of the God of heaven, perfect peace, and so forth. Evidently he liked to say that, and so on and so on. I issue a decree that all those of the people of Israel and the priests and the Levites in my realm who volunteer to go up to Jerusalem may go with you. Okay, so first of all, Ezra obviously asked if he and his buddies could go back to Jerusalem, whoever wanted to. Okay? And whereas you are being sent by the king and his 7 counselors to inquire concerning Judah and Jerusalem, with regard to the law of your God, which is in your hand, and whereas you are to carry the silver and gold which the king and his counselors have freely offered to the God of Israel, whose dwelling is in Jerusalem. And whereas all the silver and gold that you may find in all the province of Babylon, along with the freewill offering of the people and the priests, are to be freely offered for the house of their God in Jerusalem. Now therefore be careful to buy with this money bulls and rams and lambs with their grain offerings and their drink offerings, and offer them on the altar of the house of your God in Jerusalem. So he just said, I'm giving you a bunch of silver and gold, Ezra, and take it and use it to buy grain offerings and peace offerings and rams and lambs. And by the way, go ahead and walk it throughout Babylon, and whatever gold and silver you can find, you can take with you. And whatever anybody wants to give you as a free will offering, you can't tax them. Take it with you and go and make offerings to God. Okay, well, we're going to find out they left Babylon with about the equivalent of $5 million. That's million. It's a lot of gold and silver. A whole lot. So the king had given him a bunch of money and gave him the opportunity to go fundraising throughout Babylon. Now, there's no way you could spend $5 million in buying some lambs and cattle and fixing up the place. So look at what he says later. Verse 18, and whatever seems good to you and your brethren to do with the rest of the silver and the gold, do it. Wow. And also the articles that are given to you for the service of the house of your God, deliver in full before the God of Jerusalem. Now, when Zerubbabel went back, they took all the stuff that was in King Nebuchadnezzar's warehouse, of all the stuff he had taken out of the temple. They took all that stuff back. So what's this stuff? This is new stuff. This is, again, more stuff that people are going, hey, this would be really cool in the temple. Why don't you take this? Why don't you take that? And they're taking that all with them.